All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind. But we're going to have a show.
What, everybody? What up, what up, what up, party people? Yeah. Washington, D.C. is where we are. It's my mom and dad's house. Yeah. I would say technologically it's not on the cutting edge, so we might be in and out of internet connection today, but we'll try to do the best we can. We've got a great show today. Kim is here. Albert is here. I am here. And leading us off, we will talk about the storms that are moving into the Bay Area and into all of California, and yet another atmospheric river, meaning another subtropical moisture tap. I'm not going to spend a long time on this, but atmospheric river is a term that has, it's kind of cool. It actually works as a term to describe a phenomenon, but it's also being now misused by a lot of copywriters and people who try to write up weather stuff. So people like Spencer and I, who have a background in weather, get annoyed by that. Anyway, Spencer Christian from ABC7 joins us right off the hop. John Rothman on Wednesdays. He will be here to talk about several different things. The situation in Israel, you know, John, very much, I would say, an authority on things going on in the Middle East. We'll talk to him about that. But also I want to speak about Ukraine and China, as long as we're talking about international stuff that's sort of getting lost in a lot of the headlines around Fox News and the Fox News channel revelations in the Dominion lawsuit. Now we learn that Tucker Carlson, it sounds like Tucker Carlson loathed Donald Trump and said so in many private conversations. Those private conversations have now become public because that Dominion lawsuit has brought all those messages into the public square. So we'll get to all of that with John Rothman as well. We have a busting stories from the sky segment today. And if possible, Albert, can I do that? I put in a couple of stories for That's Rich. Did you see that I did that, Albert?
Yeah, there'll definitely be time in the 11 o'clock hour for that.
Okay, all right, because that's a favorite.
There's never been anything like this.
Smash the like button like a boss. Sting me, Albert. Let's do some Spencer Christian.
The Mark Thompson Show.
How about this guy? He was the dude on Good Morning America. Mm-hmm. He wrote a book. He's won it all. He's lost it all. Came back to the Bay Area. He's a wine aficionado. He still is steeped in the atmospheric sciences, and he's with us whenever we put the bat beam up. And it is up today. Spencer Christian, everybody.
Hey, great to be with you. I love that introduction. Steeped in the atmospheric sciences.
It's true. It's true. You literally send me an email occasionally with like what's going on, and you go, hey man, just want you to know the timing of this has changed, may want to address this, and in this case these storms that have lined up to move into California fall into that category. So it's really cool that you are steeped in it. Tell us what's happening, what we can expect, and what's going on.
Well, you know, Mark, I'm glad that we're talking about this today, because this is the quiet time before the fierce storm comes in. So I want people to be prepared for what's coming our way. So for the remainder of this day, you know, we had a little morning rain. It didn't amount to much. There were a few wet spots, maybe slowed down some morning traffic. But for the rest of this day and then first half of tomorrow, it's going to be relatively dry and calm. But tomorrow, late afternoon and early evening, a level 2 to 3 storm is going to be. Right now, we're calling it level 3. It's going to arrive with fury. I mean, it's going to bring strong, gusty winds all of a sudden, with gusts up to about 45, 50 miles an hour, really heavy torrential downpours, and, you know, obviously great threat of flooding, mudsliding, debris flows, trees being blown down, power outages. And that episode, once it starts tomorrow evening, will last well into Friday morning, perhaps midday, early afternoon on Friday. So it's going to be a deluge.
And so how much in that deluge, roughly, are there precipitation figures in kind of what range?
Yeah, they're talking about the areas that generally don't get the high totals from storms like this, getting over 2 inches, and areas that tend to get, you know, pretty good soakings like Kentfield and some of the North Bay locations, 4 inches. But listen to this, Santa Cruz Mountains and places like that, higher elevations, possibly up to 6 inches, a half foot of rain. Yeah, over a 2-day period.
And this is interesting, Spencer Christian. The reason that these higher elevations get more, would you like to explain it, or would you like me to?
I would like you to explain it. I don't want to steal your thunder.
Well,
I did
I'll let you correct me if I misspeak.
Okay.
The general reason, it's not a long explanation, is because of the cooling of the air mass. So as the air comes in, it rises, it hits the mountains or foothill communities in the Santa Cruz Mountains in this case, and it's pushed up, right, to get over that landmass. And as it's pushed up, it cools. It's called orographic lifting, which I think, and Albert, you can check this and Google it maybe. Aura it's derived from, is it Greek or is that Latin? Aura is air and graphic is land. So you put the two together. I think that's right. Orographic is what it's called, certainly. Orographic lifting is the lifting of the air mass over a land area, and it cools and you get more rain out of it or precipitation because cold air can't hold as much moisture as warm air.
Exactly.
All right.
That's precisely right. Yeah.
You know, Spencer, I'm thinking of putting the pads on, putting the helmet back on, and getting back into the weather game. What do you think?
You should. No, listen. For your listeners and viewers who don't know, you were the man, and you listen.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
It was just between you and me for the final choice to go on GMA, and who knows why they decided what they decided? Probably because I chose to take a pay cut to go there, and you might not have been willing to do it. But I was told point blank, if you don't take this job, kid or pal, we've got Mark Thompson right waiting in the wings, and he'll be our guy.
How things could have been different, but it all worked out, and I kind of like how it all worked out. So in this chapter of our career and sort of life arc, I like that we're together this way. So it sort of has worked out. Now, before we say goodbye to Spencer Christian, I have a question, and it's related to Good Morning America.
Sure.
Have you ever, since you left Good Morning America, have you ever gone back? If so, like how many times have you gone back, and like at what vintages? Because they change hosts along the way and everything. Sure. Have you ever gone back?
Yeah, I've gone back about 6 times, Mark. I went back the very first year that I was here, which was 1999. I was visiting my kids at Christmas. They were already grown up, but they were still living back east. I went to visit them for Christmas, and I contacted one of the producers at GMA, and I said, I would like to come and stand in that crowd, to sit in the window and kind of let Tony Perkins, who was the guy who replaced me, just kind of find me in the crowd. And they said, oh, that's cool. Let's do that. And we did that. And Tony and I had a really entertaining segment. But apparently the higher up people didn't love the idea that I was coming back so soon and taking away the luster from the new guy. So the next time I was invited back was for the 30th anniversary program, which is 2005. Then the 40th anniversary program, which was 2015. And then I was invited on in April 2018 when I released my book, You Bet Your Life. I was interviewed by Robin Roberts. And I must say this, I don't want this to sound like sour grapes, but, I was there 13 years. That was kind of a big deal, and
right.
And yet I have sent several proposals for ideas that I thought were interesting, so I could go back and do a segment or something. And it's like, there's no interest. So I don't know what it is. Not sour grapes, but I guess they've moved on. But they do have Sam Champion back a lot, I've noticed.
I have what? Say it again. Sam Champion?
Yeah, he goes on a lot these days.
Well, something, here's a big difference. And, I had this fork in my career too, and many people watching, listening may have similar. It's, if you go to New York, I was offered, in addition to the GMA being in that orbit with Spencer, I was offered the job at WNBC, it's called back there, Channel 4, NBC in New York. And I was offered all those shows because Al Roker was going to the Today Show. That's how long ago it was. Or or he was already on the Today Show. He was no longer going to be doing the local at all. So he wanted me to come in and do that. So if you go to New York, you can really manage a career based in news. They don't give you a lot of latitude to do entertainment stuff. It may be, this is back at that time.
Yeah.
If I stayed in California and went to Los Angeles, I felt I had more opportunities in those areas of entertainment. So in your case with Sam Champion, for example, he's more in touch with the suits at Good Morning America, the decision makers, than you are, a little more isolated on the West Coast. That would be my,
you're absolutely
I think it's
right.
probably, it's less personal and more just a FaceTime, I would say,
No, I think that's true. I think, and that's why I'm trying to make it clear that it wasn't sour grapes on my part, but I just thought, and it has been a long time since I left. Let's not forget it's 1999. So that's 23, 24 years ago.
But when
you
you were there, we were doing a 25 share when I was there. Okay. How dare you not return my emails? Yeah.
But anyhow, that's the story. I mean, I still.
Well, you say you have been back, though, is the answer. You have been back.
Yeah, I've been back about 5 or 6 times. Yeah, and I was.
What happened to Tony Perkins? I don't even recognize the name really very much.
He went back to Washington D.C., which is where he worked before he went to GMA, and he did some radio at, I think, the local Fox channel, and in the morning on the morning show. It's part of the morning service, right? And he also still does a lot of radio. He's got a radio team, and
how long did he last at Good Morning America, Spencer Christian?
Let's see, he about 4 years, I believe it was. Yeah.
So he didn't have a Spencer Christian career at GMA, did he? Let's be honest.
What his problem was, Mark? He looked like me. He looked a lot like me, and people kept calling him Spencer, and he couldn't get away from it. No, they did. It's really funny.
My bad.
That's a nightmare.
When I was leaving, we all look alike, right? But when I was leaving the show, my agent was told that the show by David Weston, that the president of morning programming at that time, that the show was moving in a different direction. And actually, he was president of ABC News at that time. The show was moving in a different direction. They wanted to hire a blonde female weather person. So for a short time after I left, they had this revolving door of blonde female fill-in weather people. And then all of a sudden, one of the producers there saw Tony Perkins on the air in D.C. and said, hey, we can maybe play off a little bit of the memories of Spencer by hiring this guy. He looks just like him. And poor Tony, for the whole 4 years he was there, everywhere he went, people would say, Spencer. And then he'd go, oh, no, you're not Spencer. And he never had a chance to really establish himself.
That's so bad. It really is. It's just so it's such an error. I mean, the last thing I'll say is on this, whenever they make a change in television, even in news, my view is you want to get somebody younger, fine. You want to get somebody blonde haired, you want to get a person of color instead of a white guy. I get it. There's actually a casting that goes on. You have a male anchor and a female anchor. Not always, but it's very typical. So I don't really resent any of that stuff. But in that spirit, if you're casting, why would you cast for somebody who looks just like the last guy? That's just not a good casting decision, So, anyway, that's funny to hear that, you think of these guys having...
It works every time.
You think of these guys as smart at the network level, but they're not. Spencer, you're awesome. Thank you for letting me explain orographic lifting. I feel a little more in the club.
Hey, listen, we're going to have a lot to talk about the next couple of days, so I'm available if you need me.
Let's plan on it. So will you join us tomorrow this time? And I promise I'll keep the Good Morning America stuff out. We'll just talk California weather. And likewise on Friday if we need you. Thank you. Spencer Christian, everybody. Love you, Spencer. Thanks, buddy.
That guy's fun.
He's great, and we digressed into some GMA stuff. Thank you for indulging me. Albert, sting me, please.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I do want to mention that we are sponsored by Steve Moskowitz, the brilliant tax attorney. He's been a brilliant tax attorney for more than 30 years. Yeah, right out of the chute, he was brilliant.
Yeah.
He's put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike for all those years. If you need help with your taxes, give Steve a call, 888-TAX-DEAL. Reach him at MoskowitzLLP.com as well. Mm-hmm. And ask him about ERC. I know we talk about it a lot, but it's really out there, and it's a pot of gold. You can subscribe to this show. And if you want to subscribe and receive alerts, hit the notification bell. That's the little bell there under the video. And we have now
with your iron rod.
And definitely smash the like button. Smash that like button and smash that notification bell, and you'll get notifications whenever I do a video, or we might do Kim and Albert are talking about doing something. We'll put them out as little shorts, and you'll get those little blasts here and there, and you'll know about them because of that notification. Our email address is themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. And Albert, sting me again, please.
The Mark Thompson Show.
That's a shorty.
The cops in the city, Kim. The cops in San Francisco.
Yeah.
They're going to get new money, possibly. New contract.
Oh.
They're going to get a almost 11% raise, 10.75% over 3 years.
Okay.
The mayor's saying this is a critical step to, bolstering staffing levels and addressing the staffing concerns of residents as well, and the safety concerns of residents in the city.
We are woefully understaffed for police in the city. Like, they have a lot, they're a deficit, and then there's a lot due to retire. So
how much does a starting cop in the city get as his or her salary?
Fresh out of the academy.
Starting salary.
Okay.
What is
Fresh
it in
out
the
of the
chat?
police academy.
Fresh out of the police academy.
Yeah.
No tarnish on the badge yet. You haven't been brought in for some, unauthorized activity. It's your first day in the squad car. How much are you getting? I can't see the chat, so you can tell me, Kim, if there are any.
Julie says 90K. Russ says 75K. Square says 112. Chad says 52. Let's see, 95 for M Oak. Natalie 84. Pretty good guess. 80K for Maria.
There are a lot of good guesses. Yeah, you're all warm. Everybody's pretty warm.
Got a 110.
So you guys are really warm, even hot.
Got a 140.
Current starting salary for a new San Francisco police officer is $103,116. That's according to After 7 years, officers can earn up to $147,628 a year under their current contract. Now, the new contract will boost the first year salary to above $108,000. That's without overtime, you understand. There's a lot of overtime. Officers with more experience would also see 3% raises when they hit 5 years, also when they hit 7 years, and then when they hit 8 years. So that's in this new deal. Now, the new deal still has to be approved, as you're aware. But the union is happy with this, and there has been pushback from the San Francisco Police Officers Association. I'm sorry, the pushback is from the soups, I guess, pockets of the soups. But the soups approve this salary on the new contract, and then it goes into effect. So, a lot of retirements over the last year, as you're aware, and when COVID hit, the staffing challenges increased even further. They have 331 fewer officers per city than they did just a couple of years ago. That's a lot. That's a lot to lose. And the city's current force is about 541 officers less than the number recommended by a staffing analysis in 2021. So,
if you have a car accident that's not, a major injury thing, they won't even come.
Well,
There's not enough cops to respond to everything. They can't do it.
That's a big city problem. That's exactly right. And I'll tell you another problem is officers sometimes feel, from what I've been reading, that the situation in the city is so challenged from a law enforcement perspective for just the reasons you've said. They're smash and grabs, they're car accidents, they're understaffed, that it's easier just to go get work somewhere else. And so what they're doing in San Francisco is trying to basically build in a retention program to keep a lot of those cops in the city. So there's a 3% retention raise for officers at 5, 7, and 8 years on the forces. I mentioned that in my opening comments about it in summary. And there's a pilot program that reimburses childcare expenses for employees that are held over on mandatory overtime. So if you have to work past your scheduled shift and you have to pay for childcare of one sort or another, they will reimburse you, the SFPD will. So this is all part of this new contract. And for a department that has had staffing issues, it seems to make sense. So
question, with all that, knowing how much you would make and what the benefits are, would you be a cop in San Francisco? Would you want that job?
Mark Thompson? Officer Thompson?
Officer Thompson? You know why I pulled you over, ma'am?
I would, first of all, I pulled very
really
few people
corny.
over. Yeah. You know why I pulled you over, man? Because I wanted to meet you. No,
Which one of you is Mark Thompson?
I would be the wrong person to be a cop. I mean, I could never pull people over. It seems like it's like nickel dime work. I'm not a cop to pull people over for running or whatever. You know, if somebody does it so I can never do that. And then I don't want to get out of the car and chase down some gang member. You know what I mean? It would be like, I mean, if the gang member ran right by the car, I'd reach out and grab him. But
you're saying you'd be the world's laziest cop? Is that what?
Yeah. From what I've seen, not the world's laziest, but right up there. Yeah. But probably not the world's laziest, based on what I've seen. Albert, sting me, and so I can bring in our pal Steve.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Steve Fingers. This is the Mark Thompson Show. Keep it to yourself.
Put it together for this guy I was just mentioning, ERC, just a few moments ago. How about Steve Moskowitz, everybody? Come on, Steve. Yeah. I was just talking about ERC because I feel as though, I know people feel like, well, we talk a lot about it. Yeah, we talk a lot about it because it's super, super representative of the potential you have with the U.S. government to get free money.
Mark, that is so right. The government is giving away. They're giving it away. It's not a loan. It's a grant. They're giving away up to $26,000 for every employee an employer had in 2020 and 21. There's two that qualifies. There's two ways to qualify. One's an easy test. It's a certain drop in gross revenue. But unfortunately, and it boggles me how many CPAs and firms are doing this. If you don't meet that test, they say, well, no ERC for you. Next. There's another test. It's just a lot more work for the professional. I was telling you yesterday. Yesterday, I was talking to a client. We've had our fourth conversation as to whether, and he's getting me, more and more information. We've had our fourth conversation. That takes a bunch of time. We're not charging him a penny unless if we can't get him, if he doesn't qualify, those 4 meetings were for free. He's not paying me a penny. But we're willing to do that. Most firms are not. But what they're doing the harm is they're telling people you don't qualify. When it's not that you don't qualify, it's that they don't want to do the work. It's like I also hear some ads from other firms that say if you have 5 or more employees, one will do it. They just don't want to be bothered with somebody less than 5. There's so much wrong information going around. And the bottom line is, if you were an employer, even if you were told that you don't qualify because your gross revenue didn't drop enough, talk to us about the second test. It's a facts and circumstances test. It's just as good as the first test. The law clearly says either or. And the bottom line is that if you qualify, you get every dollar that you would get under the first test. We've had a lot of clients that were turned away elsewhere and they did qualify. Not everybody, of course. You don't want to go to one of those firms that everybody qualifies. But we've been around for over 30 years, not some like these new pop-ups that are saying everybody qualifies. And the bottom line is, if you qualify, we want you to get your money.
Well, this is such a good point you make about firms popping up, because when ERC first came on, along with a bunch of other government programs, you remember the PPP and you know all of those, Steve. I can just remember that there was a big dump of money, and ERC was part of that. Well, most of that other money is gone. I think maybe literally all of it's gone, but this ERC program is still there, and a lot of these pop-ups occurred, these things you're talking about, these accounting firms that went up overnight because they saw that this was a quick bit of cash. But the real heavy lifting associated with getting that, as you suggest, if you're a sole proprietor, you're entitled to the money. In other words, you don't have to have 5 employees or more. Those firms have either gone away, or they will go away, or they certainly will likely not be there if you need them. And that's a terrific thing that you mention, and you do it politely, but I can just say straight up, these are fly-by-night operations. So reach Steve at 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. That's why the fact that he has been around more than 30 years is important. He'll be around when you need him. If there's any issue with anything, Steve handles it. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. Also, MoskowitzLLP.com, MOSKOWITZ, MoskowitzLLP.com. Steve, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Tim.
All right. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Right on. Right on. Stinger, please, Albert.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, I haven't been monitoring the chat, nor have, I don't know what's happening. So if there's something I need to pay attention to, you'll let me know. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to wish the very best, if I might, to Rupert Murdoch, everybody. That crazy kid married again. Yes, Rupert Murdoch, who came here to this country, I think, because he wanted to buy up a lot of big broadcast properties and movie studio, and it worked, in addition to newspapers. Rupert Murdoch, look, the heart wants what it wants, everyone. I think we all know that. And he's reportedly considering getting married for the 5th time.
Who's going to marry that guy?
What?
Well, he is a billionaire. I'd consider marrying him.
She's blonde. She's 28. She's a former Miss Pick a Country. No?
Well, I hope that's true, but I don't think it is true. She is. Her name is Anne Leslie Smith. He is 91. He just got out of the divorce to Jerry Hall. Remember, she was Mick Jagger's other half for a while. That was his 4th wife, and they were married for 6 years. Now, Murdoch is considering tying the knot again. Kim thinks it might be a 20-something hot, I'm going to use this phrase, a trophy wife kind of person.
Oh,
she's fun, good time. Give her some money. You'll call her when you need her kind of thing. I'll see you at dinner type thing. How old is Rupert Murdoch's girlfriend that he now is talking about possibly marrying? I ask you in the chat. Let's guess. Rupert Murdoch has a new girlfriend. He's considering making her his 5th wife. How old is she? He's 91, I remind you. 91. So we know she's not 90 or 91, right? I mean, we know he's not getting... Would that be someone... What would you consider age appropriate, Kim?
I mean, I would guess my range would be 78 to 95.
So if it's anyone under 78, they're not age appropriate?
No, I'm not going to say it's not appropriate. I'm just going to say... it's cliche, and there's a reason that it's happening.
Well, look, 20 years younger would be 71. Okay, that's not so extraordinary. No. I'd say if she was, I'm even going to say if she's in her 60s, that's not so extraordinary. Okay, I'm giving a guy a little more running room then. I think it really only gets a little awkward when she's in her 40s, maybe. Then you really, and as you say, if it's younger than that, then I was promised a photo shoot and a movie deal.
And lay out a People magazine. Yeah.
44 from Nancy. I saw 45 in there as well. Lulu guessed 33. Denise guessed 49. Any woman younger than his kids would be inappropriate, you think, Liz? Okay.
Yeah. That's a good answer, Liz.
She's 65, Jennifer thinks. The actual retail price of Rupert Murdoch's girlfriend and possible fifth wife is 66. Yes.
Oh, okay. Not so bad.
Not so bad.
Yeah. Not so bad.
Murdoch's first marriage was to Patricia Booker, a former flight attendant from Melbourne, Australia. He has one daughter with her, Prudence. After divorcing in 1967, Murdoch married Scottish journalist Anna Torrey, or Torv, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
He shares children Elizabeth, Lachlan, and James with Anna Torv. That was in 1967. He married her, then got divorced, and went on to marry Wendy Dang in 1999. They had two children of their own, Grace and Chloe, then ending their 14-year marriage in 2013. Then he married Jerry Hall.
How many kids do we have so far?
I believe that's 6. There's
Okay.
1, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. The News Corp CEO then married Jerry Hall in March of 2016.
Okay.
And then divorced her. And this new woman, who's his girlfriend and possible fiance, she was previously married to Chester Smith, who was a country music singer who passed away. Yeah. They met, it's unclear, but they were pictured on a beach in Barbados last month, the two of them. The 91-year-old billionaire said, "Love is in the air." That's a quote. And, quote, he's happy and having a good time. Well,
you know what? Even if it costs him a few million to divorce her eventually, if he outlives the marriage, hey, if you're happy and you want to do that, you got enough money to have wife number 7, 8.
5 is the answer.
5.
Oh, I see. You're okay. You're thinking
My bad.
ahead.
I'm sorry.
He's a big. The last thing I'll tell you about her, because I know everybody has them on your vision board, hoping that the matrimony actually holds this time.
Sure. Yeah.
She is kind of a religious person. She told the Christian Broadcast Network that she formed a relationship with God at the end of her first marriage, and she's very much lives by Scripture. So maybe she can bring a little something into Rupert Murdoch's life, a meaning, a coherence, some kind of strategy moving forward for the future, some values. Who knows?
I'm also praying for the relationship to get closer and closer to our favorite Larry King, because he's on his way. He's on his way.
What I'd love to see is the Larry King double back, where you double back and marry somebody you've divorced. It's been done by Elliot Gould, high-profile people have done it, and Larry King did it. As he knocked down, Larry King will remind you 8 marriages. Yeah. 1 to the same person, 7 different people.
Don't let marriage hold you back. Marriage, if you do it enough, it can be a freeing experience.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Here's Kiss News, and then John Rothman joins us next. Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Well, let's go right to Vice President Kamala Harris, because she is voicing her support now for an abortion lawsuit out of Texas. 5 women are suing Texas, alleging that a state abortion ban has led to a healthcare crisis. The Texas abortion ban, enacted in 2021, makes an exception for medical emergencies, but the lawsuit filed this week argues the exception is really poorly defined and has caused irreparable injury to pregnant women unable now to receive life-saving care, even in the case of emergency.
On that's Tuesday, John Rothman's. It's quite serious, the abortion situation, and it's becoming unspooled in this country in so many serious ways. But with that said, I will tell you that that's a great picture of Kamala Harris.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's her official
portrait. Yeah, really. We all have great pictures of ourselves. That's one of her. Yeah.
Well, anyway, you dinged me for my funky picture of Gavin Newsom yesterday, so I figured I should go with the pro spot.
I didn't ding you. I just said that's one from a while ago. He looks great. That's all I
said. So Tuesday, Vice President Harris, through her support behind this lawsuit, said taking away the right of women to make their own reproductive health care decisions endangers women's health. And that's really what the lawsuit says. These women say they had emergent situations, and because of the law, they were denied the care that they needed, and it caused them serious trouble. So 5 women joined with 2 healthcare providers suing at this point in Texas. The size of the next interest rate increase, it's still up in the air. In a Capitol hearing, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, I don't know if you like this picture of him. He said the increase will depend on incoming data on jobs and inflation. Powell facing bipartisan criticism that average Americans stand to lose the most with rising interest rates. Powell said he believes hiking rates will cool the economy and bring inflation down.
And there is a question about, how many times you need to raise this rate and by how much. At some point, you'd think they'd get to a point of diminishing returns. I mean, maybe I'll ask John Rothman if we have time to comment on that as well. But go ahead.
Yeah. Another nice photo. This one is Attorney General Merrick Garland. He says police in Louisville, Kentucky discriminate against Black people. This comes as a report about the department was released almost exactly 3 years after Breonna Taylor's death in that city. She was a Black woman asleep with her boyfriend in her apartment in March of 2020 when 2 plainclothes officers botched a no-knock raid, broke into the home. Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, shot once at the officers. They responded by firing 32 times. That led to Taylor's death. In describing the report, Garland, who officers said violated numerous constitutional amendments, including the first, which protects freedom of speech. Reports say President Biden, we'll get a picture of him as well, is considering bringing back a controversial family detention border policy. The president ending the Trump-era policy of detaining migrant families who cross the border illegally, but the White House is considering bringing it back with the recent border surge. The reports come as the administration prepares for the end of Title 42. That rule allowed border agents to turn immigrants back immediately based on COVID concerns, so that may end soon. There are some jurors in New York City starting to deliberate today on whether convicted terrorist Sayfullo Saipov, and here's his picture, he looks kind of happy, should receive the death penalty. The same jury already convicted the ISIS-inspired terrorist for driving a rented truck into a Manhattan bike path along the Hudson River in 2017, killing 8 people. Of the 28 counts that Saipov was convicted on, 9 of those make him eligible for the death penalty. Closing arguments wrapped up yesterday, with prosecutors showing graphic photos of the victims. They say Saipov is a proud terrorist who shows no remorse, adding that he is too dangerous to remain in prison since he is still threatening harm. 9 chances for him to be
wait, he's too dangerous to remain in prison? Is that what you said? No.
He's still threatening people. He's still threatening harm against the United States, still threatening to kill people, even from prison.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're saying that, if he's too dangerous for prison, then I guess the only choice is death for him. We'll see what the jury decides.
Okay.
It is International Women's Day.
I know. I love that. I'm glad you mentioned it.
On this International Women's Day, there's a report from the United Nations making a declaration that the country of Afghanistan is now the most repressive country for women. It comes after the Taliban swept into power once the United States left that country in 2021. One top UN official said it has been distressing to witness the Taliban's methodical, deliberate, systematic efforts to push Afghan women and girls out of the public sphere. Back into
one of the things that was talked about when we left Afghanistan was just this, the fact that it would revert to this ridiculously patriarchal structure. It's based in BS religious doctrine that's made up and hatched, either overnight, or it relates back to some ancient doctrine where women just didn't have a place at the table. The religion was created and the doctrines were created by men. It's despicable what happens in Afghanistan and what the Taliban is doing. And it was one of the few reasons to remain with some kind of American footprint in Afghanistan. But we were the one good thing we might have done there is given those women who were raised during that generation, and it was a whole generation that we had American presence there, a lift up. So it's sad to see that having reverted so quickly to the way it was.
It's really sad and scary for them as well. That's a heartbreaker. All right, let's end on a positive note here on the Mark Thompson Show news broadcast, because the winner of the more than $2 billion Powerball jackpot is now the owner of this mansion in Southern California.
What?
Yeah, baby. The LA Times reports Edwin Castro spent how much on this house in a neighborhood where several celebrities live?
Yeah, I was going to do this later. This is great that you brought it up.
Well, then maybe I won't give the price then.
No. That's all right. Let's do the story. It's
okay.
I think what's striking about this, I know the answer, everybody else can guess, but I think what's striking about this is just quickly, if you had just won this $1 billion lottery, and this is your
$2 billion.
$2 billion. Okay, so even better.
Yeah.
Would you get, and now you're going to spend the money. Are you spending it like with an eye towards some degree of modesty, or are you blowing big? The answer is this guy blew big. So
big. $2 billion, $25 million for a house is peanuts. It's chump change.
So the guesses are coming in around 25 million. Seems to be a common 27. Karen Q guesses 6. 32 says Vilma. The cliff looks iffy, says Ren.
Kinda. Yeah.
How many bathrooms? We really don't know enough about this house.
I will tell you, it is a 3-story home in the Hollywood Hills with 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a game room, a wine cellar, and a movie theater.
29 million, says Tom. What's the answer, Kim?
The answer would be $25 million. So well done, folks.
Wow. Well done.
Yeah.
Well guessed. All right.
Edwin Castro won this record jackpot after allegedly buying a Powerball ticket back in November. There's been a little controversy over that ticket, though. Hasn't there? There's been like, whose ticket really is it? Did one guy says it's his and stole it, that Castro stole it? I don't know. There's
but he couldn't produce any evidence.
Yeah. Hey, if it's your ticket, keep it on you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Look, they don't pay out to this guy if there's any controversy for real. So they wouldn't issue the check. They
got to sign the back of that lotto ticket, Yeah. So that's his new house. Isn't that nice? What a lovely view.
Maybe you'll get invited to the housewarming. All right.
Yeah, maybe we could do the show from the pool. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years. Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, check in with Steve Moskowitz. He's at 888 Tax Deal at the bottom of your screen. You can see the website as well. It is moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
I don't want to delay at all any further. I've got a genuine superstar of history, of politics, of broadcasting, a favorite among KGO listeners. And he's come over to be with us. His regular spot is Wednesday. How about it for John Rothman, everybody? Come on. How are you, you sexy fool?
I am splendid. I want you to know I've only been married once. I want to make that crystal clear.
What?
I also...
You feel like you're underachieving because it's only been once, or are you overachieving because it's only been once?
No, I will tell you, we have 2 sons, and I always wanted a daughter. And you know what my wife told me? With my next wife.
I like your wife already. So, John, there's so much going on in the world, and not a whole lot of it is good. You just heard about what's happening in Afghanistan with here on International Women's Day.
Can I just point out, both
Please.
you and I on KGO talked about what would happen to women And basically, our listeners, when they called in, said, well, we have to think about ourselves first. And the question becomes how tragic that we can see a situation like this in the world and there's nothing we seem to be able to do about it.
Right. Exactly. I mean, we were in Afghanistan, and when we had a presence in Afghanistan, as I was mentioning, the degree to which women could be repressed in this way, I mean, it's a violent repression. It was really limited because of the American presence, but we pull out, and essentially it's the reversion to the mean, you know.
And I don't think about it in a general category of women. I try to picture an individual woman and understand what it would mean if I lived in Afghanistan. What are the implications? And that's what we have to do. We have to personalize it, and it has to do with any kind of repression. But this was not only predictable and clearly going to happen, but now that it's happened, the horror of it should disturb the conscience of the world, particularly on International Women's Day.
I want to ask you about what's going on in Israel. Mm-hmm. I feel like you're a good source on a lot of the history of that country, and I think it's a country that's seen so much violence. It's a really tough neighborhood for that country to exist in. They've had this remarkable flourishing economy. I mean, it's a pretty amazing place, Israel, in many ways, and it coexists with this terribly disturbing situation with a group of people who feel as though they lack rights. They want their own land. They want land back. I mean, this is a complicated. I know I'm doing like a reducto on all of this. That's pretty substantial. But give me the state of the state there, and the latest seems to be the beginnings of what could be a more violent period again in Israel's history.
Well, the real question for the Israelis is the challenge to their democracy, the attempt by the current government of Israel to change the way in which courts are chosen. Remember, we have a balance of power between the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. In Israel, there is only a parliamentary system and a judicial system. They don't have the executive power that we have here. We face in the United States a similar challenge. Just this morning, there is a report again that the Republicans want to deal with what they are terming the travesty of January 6th. I listened to Tucker Carlson last night as well. The challenges to democracy in democratic countries is so clear and so self-evident. I was asked the other day, what is my view of what's going on in Israel? They are going through the same existential crisis about democracy that we are going through. And I believe in the fundamental ability of societies that are fundamentally democratic to respond appropriately. So I am not worried about Israeli democracy. What I'm worried about is the challenge to democracy all over the world. And that brings us back to Afghanistan, which doesn't pretend to be democratic. So these issues, Mark, are real. The Israelis face a whole host of issues. And fortunately, their system, a democratic system, I think will withstand all the threats.
Well, it's a right-wing government, and they are trying to take a more aggressive posture toward many things. That's
sort of like, if I may be so bold, what we now have in the House of Representatives.
Right.
We have an abuse of power taking place by Kevin McCarthy from the right, which is unprecedented. Can you imagine releasing video of the January 6th insurrection only to Fox? Can you imagine, and you alluded to it earlier, the question of the testimony, which we now have from Fox's own talk show hosts that are incredible. That's a real challenge to American democracy. And the real challenge is that there are millions of Americans who believe it. And that is the most disturbing thing of all. So when I think of Israel, I think of the United States, and I think of these challenges. We have to hope and believe that the systems under which we live, whether it is in the United States or in Israel, are strong enough to withstand the assaults which we all face. And by the way, that applies to Afghanistan. We cannot, for a moment, forget about what's going on in Afghanistan.
Well, when you say we cannot, for a moment, forget about it, what we were there for 20 years. What would you like to do there? What would you like to see American policy toward Afghanistan be now?
I think it's not a question of American policy, it's the world. If this is International Women's Day, the General Assembly and the Security Council of the United Nations have to say to Afghanistan and to its neighbors, this is unacceptable. And we as a world body are going to try to deal with it. One of the great tragedies of the post-World War II period is the impotence of the United Nations. They can make all the moral declarations they want, but they have no impact, in fact, on how the world revolves and evolves. And so the only vehicle we have is the United Nations. And you may recall that there are some Republicans who are currently talking now about cutting our foreign aid, cutting our aid to the United Nations. The last thing we should be doing is cutting the United Nations. We ought to be strengthening the UN in every way in the hopes that something could be done. Eleanor Roosevelt, this is International Women's Day. It was Eleanor Roosevelt, perhaps the greatest woman in modern American history, who authored the Declaration of Human Rights of the United Nations. And when people tell me, well, what do you want to do? I say, reread the Declaration of Human Rights. Reread it and see if we can apply it. Because if the United Nations is worth anything, those are the words which mean something.
You know, the United Nations is a deeply troubled institution. It has been since its formation. You know this as well as I do. It's a factionalized place where there are decrees and vetoes that fall along those factionalized lines. So I am not a big United Nations booster, but let me finish. I so agree with what Rothman's saying right now, which is flawed as it is, and it is deeply flawed. I just kind of gave you the broad stroke on it.
That's right.
You must have it. You must have it. And you know, when I saw the Trump administration begin to core out the State Department, you know, I'm here in Washington, D.C. This is my parents' house. I grew up in this town. I have a lot of friends at the Justice Department, a lot of friends at the State Department, a lot of friends at the Secret Service. I mean, I got, you know, people I went to school with, people I grew up with. They're all working with government in different, and a lot of them left the State Department because there was this is mostly due to Bannon, a real effort to core out the State Department. It was viewed as part of the administrative state. Without the State Department, you have really no diplomatic channel to do any number of things and face any number of world crises. You really only have the military at that point, and I suppose the Oval Office telephone.
You know, you're absolutely right. I have the privilege of being Harold Stassen's biographer. And although a lot of people laugh at Governor Stassen because he was the perennial candidate for president, he was the author, for all intents and purposes, of the Charter of the United Nations. And it was his great disappointment in life, not that he didn't become president. His great disappointment was that the United Nations did not live up to the expectations of the world. The UN was only really a power in the world in its first decade, from 1945 to 1955, when everyone really paid attention. Nobody pays attention anymore. But you asked me, Mark, what vehicles we have. The only vehicle on an international level that we have in order to address what's happening in Afghanistan is the UN. And frankly, the only models we have when it comes to the United States and Israel and the challenges to our own democratic institutions is to go back to our founding documents and really try to live up to what our founders believed, at least the positive things, not the negative things, the positive things.
Let me. I still want to get to the Fox if I possibly can, and this perversion of truth that seems to be occurring. You noted it, and maybe that'll be enough, you know, just to note how crazy it is that you released these tapes to be sanitized by someone on Fox News Channel and represent what was an attempted coup, a violent coup, represented as, you know, something other than, you know. But I want to ask you about China. You know, John, China is a dominant presence in the world, dominant presence in the United Nations, since you were mentioning that. And China, we're their best customer, as I think I've mentioned on the show before, and they're an important part of the relationship that we have with our economy. We sell debt to China, et cetera. It feels as though we're entering maybe a Cold War period with China.
I wish it were cold. I hope it remains cold. The Chinese are expanding in the Pacific. They're creating islands in the Pacific. They talk repeatedly about invading Formosa, Taiwan. This is serious business. And I don't know that there is a way to contain it. Look, let me give you one other example. The anti-China drumbeat now going on over where the virus was created in a lab or in the streets of China, to me is unbelievably inappropriate. I want to know where the virus began, but the more important question is, and I think the most significant thing is, the Chinese, if they were responsible in a lab for creating it, didn't create it to unleash on the world. It was not intended as a biological weapon. It's the same thing we talked about on KGO, Mark, and I said this repeatedly when people would say, well, the Chinese are conspiring against us, and this is part of that conspiracy. And I said, no, I don't accept that. I think what may have happened is less important than what our response is. And if we don't hunker down in relation to the Chinese, they are our major competitor in the world, and there should be no mistake about it. And you aren't even talking today about what's going on in Ukraine. But the disaster in Ukraine is so overwhelming, so monumental, so tragic. And let me point out again, we were talking about the UN, or we can talk about NATO, we can talk about all of these institutions. They're completely impotent in terms of preventing human tragedy. And that, to me, is one of the most disturbing things. Who can you count on in the world if you're in trouble? Who can correct these injustices and these wars? And we could, when it comes to China, as with Russia, it could spin out of control unless we're very careful. May I say that when Donald Trump last week addressed the crowd gathered at CPAC and said, if I were president, Putin would never have invaded Ukraine. And when he said that he could stop it in a minute, and I listened to that kind of demagoguery, and that's what it is. It scares the living bejeebers out of me. So we have threats to democracy, threats to our own institutions, threats to societies around the world. And we have to stand firmly in the belief that we can make a difference if we try to do the right thing. And may I tell you, and this is a purely partisan statement, and I want to make that crystal clear. I'm grateful that Joe Biden is president and not Donald Trump. Just listen to the rhetorical flourishes from Donald Trump last week at CPAC and listen to Joe Biden's far more reasonable approach. I'm not talking, Mark, about policy here. I'm talking about rhetorical power. And remember what Teddy Roosevelt called the White House, a bully pulpit. And if you have a demagogue providing a bully pulpit, you have a potential catastrophe. So I point this out respectfully because I'm concerned about the fate of democracy here in Israel, and yes, even in Afghanistan, where we made an effort, and the effort may have failed, but thank God we tried with all of our mistakes, with all the things we did wrong. And I ask on this International Women's Day, if every woman listening to this broadcast would think what it would be like for them if they lived in Afghanistan. Just think about it. And that to me is the key, because to be honest with you, Mark, we don't take things personally. It's too easy to flub it off and say, well, it's somebody else's problem. I used to have hair. I don't anymore because I worry about all these problems so resolutely. And at least on your program, we have a chance to talk about it.
Well, the last thing I'll say, just in relation to International Women's Day and the plight of women, and I know we talk about the plight of women in Afghanistan and around the world, but I want to turn a light back onto this country where women have had their reproductive rights taken away by a backward court, by a bunch of right-wing, crazy religious nut jobs, our mullahs, and it's continuing. It wasn't enough for them to roll back Roe. It wasn't enough for them to turn it back to the states, and in red states, those rights that I've just described are being taken away. Now they're going after the blue states. They're going after places that are islands of civility and islands of fairness when it comes to women having control over their own bodies. I see this as an outrage. I find it grotesque.
The idea that they're wanting to ban the ability to have an abortion pill sent through the United States mail is stunning. But I want to commend Kim McAllister. Why? Because Kim opened this broadcast by pointing out what's going on in Texas right now. Oh. And the women of the world had better unite, and we'd better unite with them in order to overturn these things. And All I can tell you is when you think about what the Republican Party is doing now, not to come back purely to domestic things, I'm glad you raised this, Mark. All of the major Republican candidates for president are in favor of limiting a woman's right to choose. Well, what could be more undemocratic? What greater assault could there be on individual liberty? By the way, I'm not here advocating for a woman to get an abortion. I am advocating for a woman's right to choose whether or not to have an abortion or whether or not to take birth control pills. And what do? I was just talking to a college student who got his girlfriend pregnant. And in the end, they were able to secure the abortion pill through the mail so that it was taken and the pregnancy was terminated. And he looked at me with tears in his eyes. He's 20 years old. And he said to me, can you imagine what my life would be like if this pill had not been available? Can you imagine what the life of my girlfriend would have been if this pill were not available? And his point was, whether he married her or not, he had the obligation then to take care of a child, and he wasn't ready to do it. I mean, there
are a million stories like that. It's and we're talking about basic health care here too. This is outrageous what's happening in this country.
Oh, so, can I make one other comment? I mean, I know we're running out of time, but
you're really well over the one-over comment line, John.
I know.
Processes, protocols, and standards. All right. It's okay. I'll allow it.
God, thank God. I just, if anybody's going to be a dictator, Mark, it might as well be you. But I do want to point out the assault. I do want to point out the assault on Medicare and Social Security that is being leveled by Republicans, and they can deny it from here to hell and back again. But listen to what they're doing in committees. They're going after Medicare. They're going after Social Security. They're talking about substantial budget cuts. All I can tell you is, for America, this is a test of our freedom.
Wow. He really stuck the landing, Kim. I love John Rothman for the land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no step
find him here.
Hard.
Find him here on
hard landing.
I got an email.
Make it easy for you.
Got an email from Matt.
Yeah.
It's titled FKGO. It says, "Hi, Mark and Kim and fresh-faced Albert. I'm so glad that I found the show online. I'm still so pissed off at KGO for changing the format. I hope to find the rest of the personalities like John Rothman and Pat Thurston and Nikki. Nice to have Law and Disorder and Friday Fabulous Florida back. Thank you, Matt."
I just point out,
there you go.
It was not KGO that changed the format. It was Cumulus Media. And I want to differentiate that, because those of us at KGO, Mark was actually on the air when the plug was pulled. We were all completely horrified. And every day, Mark, people come up to me and say, "Didn't you used to be John Rothman?" It's one of the what? And whether it was KGO or another vehicle. And may I point out, can I put a plug for Pat? Pat is now reading news on KCBS.
Yeah.
And occasionally I've been on with her. Tim Sika's been on with her. She has tried to maintain as best she can in the short segment she has some of the interaction, but it's not radio talk. It's not what Mark Thompson or what Nikki Maduro or what Kim McAllister, what you are trying to do. And I'm so proud to be a part of this, if for no other reason than to try to give people that chance for expression. And people should spread the word about the Mark Thompson program and support the Mark Thompson.
Yes, damn it. Listen to Brother Rothman, everybody. Hallelujah.
And I don't get a raise for this, do I, Mark? So,
no. I'm doubling what we're giving you today. Next week, I'm doubling it. All right.
You gotta stop. You got to let people know. I'm not paid anything. I do this because I so believe in the good work you're doing.
I know we're late for news, but I have two Rothman-y questions to ask. First, people in the chat are wondering, what's this vehicle behind you on the wall, the portrait of the van?
I will explain. My father-in-law was from Indianapolis, Indiana, and he had a business called Tuckman Cleaners.
Okay.
And what is behind me is the Tuckman Cleaner truck.
Okay.
And my wife framed it and had it put up there to remind me to keep trucking.
Keep on trucking. And second, we were talking earlier about inflation and whether or not we need to keep those inflation rates going up in order to fix what's happening with our economy. And or the interest rates rather. And I wonder quickly what your thought is on that.
The Fed doesn't have a choice. The last thing we need is an economic crisis in this country. If by raising interest rates, that can be tamped down, more power to it. I don't know how many people remember what it was like in 2008. I'm not even going to go back to 1929, but I mean, 2008 is close enough that everybody has a recollection. The strength of America and the preservation of our democracy, and the Republican form of government that we have, hinges on a strong, vital, vibrant economy. Thank God, the one thing the Fed has said is the economy is strong. I know there are individual cracks. I know that inflation is tough. I know all of those things. But the fact is that fundamentally, it is the American economy which drives the economy of the world. And our power as a world power comes from the economic force that we bring, not just the power of our ideas, although that to me is critical. It is also the fact that we have an economy that works. And I just hope that the Republicans and Democrats, because the next big issue, which Mark will be addressing, I'm sure, at some point, will be raising the debt ceiling. And
yeah, we've talked about it a couple of times already. But John, you can, and we will, of course, bring as the deadline grows closer, we will talk about it more. But you will concede, though, John. You can raise, when you say they have no choice, you can raise the interest rates beyond a reasonable level. You can begin to do damage to that economy that you're talking about because of the very thing that you're speaking of the Fed's doing.
Exactly. But fortunately, we have a Fed that is acting responsibly.
Okay.
And I want to point that out. And we have a Congress that I hope will act responsibly, because the big issue now is not the debt ceiling, which is an important question, but the question will be, when the new Congress proposes the budget, how that budget falls in line, and whether Republicans and Democrats can reconcile themselves. And let me point out to you, when I used to work the middle of the nights on KGO, and it was a slow night, all I had to do was mention Social Security or gun control, and the board would light up like a Christmas tree.
Sure.
Well, we could go into guns, but the most important single thing is, think about the number of people we know whose lives are determined by that Social Security check and Medicare. Make no mistake.
This is what Donald Trump realized, and that's why he made the point to separate himself from the rest of the GOP in Congress, or many of them, and even members of the GOP, as you know, particularly in the Senate, who are trying to stay clear of the stink of the mention of rolling back or changing Social Security. They call it the third rail of politics for a reason. And Trump realized, wow, can't believe, Trump, who's a, manifestly a moron, has no underlying political philosophies, as you're aware. He's an empty vessel, all about himself. That's why he's such a good tool to be used by many, I'm going to say the right wing that really took control of the GOP. They saw something in Trump in those opportunities. But he does recognize, don't you think, John, the populist desire to hang on to Social Security and Medicare for the reasons that you mentioned. So when the rest of the party, his party, were going toward canceling it or rolling it back, Trump saw an opportunity to distinguish himself from the rest of the GOP. I thought it was a smart move politically.
So do I. And I think the Republican Party, if they have any smarts, will embrace that. But let me point out to you that McCarthy is not the smartest guy leading the Republican Party. I would rather have had a Paul Ryan. Let me tell you, Paul Ryan ideologically wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare.
Oh, my God, yes. He's an Ayn Rand disciple.
Absolutely. At least he was honest, and there would be been a real repudiation. I don't think McCarthy is honest in all of this. And we're just getting started, Mark. I mean, there's so much to talk about, and I know I've overstayed my welcome, but I do want you to know how much I appreciate the opportunity to share some of these thoughts. And I hope I see in the chat we're getting a lot of comments, but
it's great, John. You don't overstay your welcome. We're late, so I have to say goodbye. But you never overstay your welcome. You're absolutely terrific. And the questions, I'll say this to the chat, and I'll say this with John still around, as to Donald Trump's legal hammer and when it'll be dropped on him. Let's push those to tomorrow. We have David Katz joining us. He's the former assistant U.S. attorney, and he can speak to prosecution of Trump probably in even greater detail. But we'll visit it with John next week as well.
Thanks,
John, love you, pal. Thank you. John Rothman, everybody. Thank you, John Rothman. Bravo, bravo. It was like
The Mark Thompson Show.
So, someday, Oh, we're so late. I can't believe how late
I'm
we are.
sorry. That's because I asked 2 more questions.
This
Just
is
blame
the sun
me.
coming down. Yeah,
I
on
did it.
International Women's Day. Way
Blame the
not
woman.
to follow the format. Yeah, we give you a little more room on International Women's Day.
Okay, I'll take that room.
This is
I
the
use
sun
every
beating down
advantage
on
I've
me.
got coming to me. Every advantage.
Well, whatever I was going to say is no longer important. I will tell you that the ways you can help the show: hit the like button for John Rothman, smash it with your iron rod, damn straight, for that sexy beast that is John Rothman. Show him a thumbs up. Good info. If you want to hear that conversation, we'll break it out as a separate video later today. You can be kept abreast of those videos by hitting the notification bell. And anytime there's a video from the show, we'll break out a lot of these conversations as separate videos. You'll be able to see it because you'll be notified. How would you would like an hour with John?
Yeah.
You mean you'd like an hour with John privately, or you mean we should do an hour with him?
Iron rod.
Please be more specific.
He's married. He's married.
Yeah, but there are a lot of different kinds of marriages, is what I always say.
You're naughty. You are so naughty.
No, I just see people who are perfectly happy with a lot of different kinds of marriages. That's all.
Okay.
I always feel like I can't judge somebody's marriage.
Shout out.
Yeah, huge shout out.
I can. I'm happy to.
All right. Now, Albert, what would you like to do? International Women's Day has put us way late today. But I think we can. I also feel as though Kim may be the best part of the show. So do I have her news?
Let's toss to news.
Okay.
We'll have stories from the sky coming up, and then we'll round out after the bottom of the hour with maybe talking a little Marks Madness. We have a lot of shout outs, actually. A lot of very generous donations that we've seen throughout the hour, and we'll get to that as well. So let's just toss us some news now.
All right. Sounds good. Everybody, you heard all of that? All right. Kim's news, Charge from the Sky, shout out. We're going to mention Marks Madness, which is upcoming. I'm wearing the Marks Madness hat. It's going to be a big festival of fun beginning here on the 14th.
Wait for that.
Yeah. But now, smash the like button. A break
Smash
with Kim's news.
With your iron rod.
And then we'll be back. Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister with this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Here comes the rain, another dangerous storm just hours from slamming into the state. Forecasters say an atmospheric river is now on track to hit northern and central California tomorrow, continuing through the weekend. We heard Spencer Christian from ABC saying it will arrive with fury. If that doesn't get your attention, I don't know what will. It means heavy rain, possible flooding, powerful winds, snow, mudslides. Some people in Fresno County have already been told they may need to leave their homes. In Monterey County, they advise having 2 weeks worth of supplies. Yikes. The National Weather Service warns, buckle up. It's going to be quite the weather ride, as if we haven't had that ride already. When can I get off the ride? Speaking of the storms, 4 California ski resorts are absolutely overflowing with snow. In fact, it looks like they all topped 600 inches of snow so far this season. My screen keeps I'll tell you guys, there's something wrong with the I key on my keyboard. And so it just takes off and starts typing I's randomly all over the place. It is wild. Let's get back to the ski resorts, though. It includes China Peak near Fresno, Boreal near Lake Tahoe, Sugar Bowl near Truckee, and Dodge Ridge in Pinecrest. 2 others in the Tahoe area could join the list after a new atmospheric river moves in this week. The Sierra Nevada expecting 10 to 30 inches of snow. There are from snow to sunshine. How about spring break in Mexico? Or maybe not, because there are growing concerns about traveling to Mexico as spring break approaches. This after 4 Americans were kidnapped, 2 of them killed by suspected cartels just across the border in Mexico. Most of Mexico is under a U.S. Department of State travel advisory, and popular areas like Cancun and Cozumel are under the increased caution category as well. Ukrainian President Zelensky is inviting House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to visit his country. Come on down to Ukraine. Zelensky extending the invitation on CNN in response to Republicans discussing whether the United States should continue providing aid to Ukraine as it defends itself against Russia's invasion. McCarthy said if he doesn't, that he does not plan to go to Ukraine, and he added that he supports the country but is not on board with giving them what he calls a blank check. China.
Yeah, he kind of split the difference there, didn't he, McCarthy?
Yeah, we support you, but not monetarily. We just, but not a lot.
Yeah.
You know,
Thoughts and prayers, in other words. Yeah.
Speaking of different countries, we've got China doing everything in its power to stonewall investigations into the origins of COVID-19. That's what an expert said while speaking to a House committee today. Dr. Jamie Metzel of the Atlantic Council said there's been no comprehensive investigation because of the reprehensible actions of the Chinese government. But another expert is now claiming COVID most likely came from a lab leak. Former CDC director Robert Redfield making the comment before a House panel today. The lab leak theory is gaining traction after the Energy Department and the FBI said it was the most likely explanation in a low confidence type of situation. Other U.S. intelligence agencies believe the virus emerged naturally.
Let me make one comment about that low confidence thing, what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
All of the analyses, all of the opinions, all of the things related to the origins of COVID-19, all of them were low confidence. So this idea somehow, well, I get it, they think it came from the lab, but it was a low confidence thing. Well, this just in, kids, all of them were low confidence. So
the bottom line is we don't know.
We don't know, and I think did Rothman touch on this? I mean, now it runs together all, but I believe that
Michael Hiltzik did, I believe, the other day.
Maybe Hiltzik did, touched on the fact that it doesn't really matter in one sense. What matters is the way you handle the pandemic for the next time, and there is even a next time coming now, potentially. And if you haven't seen that video, go back and look at our conversation that we just had within the last 10 days with Dr. Peter Chin Hong, when we discussed the H5N1. That virus it's sweeping the globe right now. And it's already jumped to the mammalian population. It's not really much of a stretch to think that it might get into the human population. So all I would say when it comes to these origins of COVID is, yeah, I think it's important to know, but I also think the reality is the important thing is how to handle this. What are the best policies to put in place? What are the best strategies for the future? So that's what I really wish we could walk away from this stuff with.
There are several Bay Area colleges being called the best in California. So let me show you the picture of one of them, ranked at the top. Stacker, this website Stacker, ranked schools based on things like tuition, acceptance rate, graduation rate, and location, and Stanford University comes out on top with a student to teacher ratio of 2-to-1, an acceptance rate of 5%. UC Berkeley, 8th on the list with enrollment at 29,000, Santa Clara University, 15th, and the University of San Francisco, USF, ranks 25th. Here's a happy little ending for us. This is Timmy. He's a sheep, and he's one step closer to being in the national spotlight. Timmy, well, he's in the spotlight on the Mark Thompson show, so I don't know what more he wants. Timmy lives at the Funky Chicken Rescue Sanctuary in Vacaville. He is now a top 10 finalist for the annual Cadbury Bunny commercial. He beat thousands of other rescued pets during tryouts, and now it's time to vote. People can go online to choose their favorite every day through Tuesday, I think, of next week. The winner also gets a $5,000 prize. So again, that's Timmy. He's at the Funky Chicken Rescue Sanctuary in Vacaville. He's got his bunny ears on. He's looking good. I could see him in the commercial. Yeah.
Yeah. You know me. I'm not crazy about using these creatures in any of these things, but all right. I mean, he's adorable, and I know I'm a little
And if it brings money to the rescue sanctuary,
That's right. That's why I'm divided.
Yeah.
Right. Because it does. It brings attention to the rescue. So good job.
I'll leave his picture up there while I tell you that this report is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, give Steve a call. He's at 888-TAX-STEAL. He's also online at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, are you going to now run the open, or remember what we discussed?
Sorry, that's all you get.
Albert and I had a meeting.
You have clearance, Clarence. Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in!
Poor Albert has to do everything because I don't have any control over anything while I'm on remote like this. But thank you, Albert. This is Stories from the Sky, and there are some major stories to be had. A 33-year-old dude tried to open the flight emergency exit door on a United flight.
No.
In midair. And then when the flight attendants tried to grab him, he tried to stab one of them in the neck with a broken spoon. Francisco Severo Torres, charged with interference with a flight crew and use of a dangerous weapon. He was flying from LA to Boston. He was seen fiddling with an emergency exit door. When he's confronted by a flight attendant, he tried to attack that flight attendant with a broken spoon, but was restrained by the crew and other passengers. Are you always in that state of readiness when you're on a flight?
We do have some video here, Mark, if you wanted me to just run it a little bit.
Yeah, please. Absolutely. Thanks, Albert. Go ahead.
Lisa Olson recorded this on her cell phone during her United Air flight from LA to Boston Sunday.
Since I'm taking over this plane.
33-year-old Francisco Torres, who's from Leominster, arrested here at Logan Airport, now facing serious federal charges, accused of trying to open the emergency door during flight and trying to stab a flight attendant with a broken spoon.
The United crew was amazing. They blocked the first class entrance, which led to the cockpit.
The video shows Torres quickly tackled by a group of passengers.
Tackled him to the ground, and there were probably about 4 to 6 of them that sat on top of him to restrain him.
In Torres's Leominster neighborhood, shock.
We actually have 2 kids here. And I was like, oh my goodness, we live next door to that.
Court documents show a history of mental illness. In 2015, he was accused of hitting a Fitchburg convenience store, passed a note to the clerk stating he had or needed a gun. The case was dismissed, and he was referred to a mental health treatment plan. In 2017, another case dismissed from an incident at this Leominster home where he lives with his parents. His mother told police he grabbed and assaulted her. He sent the judge this letter saying he was off and on homeless and wanted to get a restraining order against thousands of people he felt harassed by.
All right, so we kind of get the.
Yeah, he sounds like
he sounds like a pleasant fellow to hang out with.
Yeah,
you know?
Right. He's. It would be nice instead of just getting suspended sentences if he was at least admitted into treatment or something else happened to him that might be more appropriate. But in any case.
I was going to say, I love that all the passengers jumped in and tackled him to the ground, because that's the thing. When you're on a plane, when you're in a car on the road, you have to trust other members of the public, right? That we're all in it together, that no one's going to do anything shady or stupid. So the fact that everyone else could have been affected by his, opening of emergency doors mid-flight, tackle that guy to the ground. Sit on him until the police come with the handcuffs. Absolutely.
Well, I'm with you. I am in a constant state of readiness when I'm in that cabin. I'm looking, my head's on a swivel. If anybody steps out of line, I'm on it, because it's not even opening a door. I don't want the flight to be delayed. I want to get to where I'm going. I hate the whole thing. From the moment I arrive at the airport until the moment I arrive at my destination, I loathe it. And the longer the whole process takes, the worse it is. I'm an irritated traveler. I'm pleasant, but on the inside, I'm melting down. And if somebody pulls that crap, I will jack them into next week to make sure they don't get to the pilot or anybody else that's got to keep this damn thing running. So you can always count on me as a, what would that be? Like a provisional air marshal?
When they
That's
ask you
what I
to,
am.
well, he's trying to open the emergency exit road door, right? So those are specific seats that are given out, because you're like, are you willing and able to help in the case of an emergency? So they might have to reword that. Are you willing and able to help passengers trying to open this door?
Yeah, to prevent it from being open. Exactly.
Are you willing and able to help with crazy people aboard your flight?
Wings of 2 United Airlines planes clip. It happened on the runway at Boston Logan Airport.
What?
This is a week after a JetBlue pilot was forced to take evasive action when a Learjet crossed that JetBlue flight on the runway as it was preparing to land. The wing of a United Airlines plane fouled on the horizontal stabilizer of another.
Oops.
Fouled, does that mean it rode up onto it? This whole thing happened before 9 a.m. on Monday at Boston's Logan International Airport.
Again,
That's
in
not
Boston.
fake. That's real.
2 United Airlines planes. Wow. I flew United to get to this location. I'm flying United on the way back.
Well,
I'd
look
like
at it this
to go
way.
without incident.
At least one airline doesn't have to sue another. I mean, it's,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You had the story yesterday about the lady who died on that private flight because of clear air turbulence. It's pretty remarkable that, this phenomenon that you don't hear a lot about actually produced enough turbulence to kill someone on board. They tell you, hey, folks, keep those seatbelts fastened the way we do up here in the cockpit. There's an example on a private flight, and she loses her life as a result of turbulence. A Lufthansa flight had hit turbulence on a flight to Dulles Airport. That's where I am. Yeah,
okay.
that's exactly the airport I landed at. I guess is that what you do? You land at, or landed in, or landed on, and then I'm going from Dulles. I like to relate as many stories back to myself as I possibly can. Anyway, these 7 people are hurt. This is turbulence on a Lufthansa flight to Dulles Airport. And these 7 people were taken to hospitals. Okay, this is, again, serious turbulence. Albert, do you have a picture of what happened on board this Lufthansa flight? I see a picture
but it's even worse. It's a video of another Lufthansa flight from Austin to Frankfurt. So this is a separate story, but it's not a good time for Lufthansa. Here's the video.
Here it is. There is debris strewn everywhere for those just listening.
Oh, man.
I think we were falling for a little.
There is absolute debris wall to
We were
wall
all
in
having
the
dinner
aisle.
1.5 hours into the flight, and then we suddenly dropped. It felt like we were in zero gravity for some time because I saw everything flying in slow motion. After the initial drop.
Yeah, and then later in the video, she even shows the ceiling or the top of the aircraft, and you see like stuff sticking to the ceiling as well, so like food. So it's it's quite the drop.
Yeah,
we used to have, when we were on KGO, a pilot who was a regular listener, and he wrote me some long, detailed emails whenever we'd have a story about something aviation related. He seemed like a pretty good source. Remember the 737 MAX stuff was going down at that time, and so he had kind of some thoughts on that. So I don't know how, I guess, frequent or how with what frequency these flights run into the kind of turbulence that we're talking about, where one person loses their life on a private flight, another situation like the one we've just seen on that Lufthansa flight, a third situation on another Lufthansa flight. I just don't know. It seems as though that's pretty frequent. Now, maybe it's just being recorded more by people who have ways to record it on their cell phone, but seems pretty brutal. There are warnings not to go to Mexico. Don't fly there. Don't drive there. After the kidnapping of 4 Americans, the U.S. has listed Mexico on the do not travel alert list.
Mhm.
But after that, travel interest in going to Mexico triples.
What?
How does
Well,
that?
like people like a little danger?
Apparently, spring breakers lead that crew. Spring breakers are hitting the beach in Mexico, even as the U.S. government
Wild idea, but it just might work.
is urging them to avoid cartel hotspots because of this spike in violence. Of course, 4 Americans were kidnapped, 2 butchered in the border town of Matamoros. And despite all that violence, travel agents are reporting a post-pandemic boom, bookings on pre-2020 numbers to Mexico.
No one
Cabo,
cares. No one cares about
Cabo, Cancun, and Tulum are the leading spots, but there are warnings over crime and kidnapping even in those areas. So it's
It's truly like no one's paying attention. Woohoo! Spring break in Mexico.
after a couple of those Jello shots, you don't care about any of those State Department warnings. I got to be honest.
Unfortunately, they're not even seeing the news, Kim. I'm sure they don't even know what's going on down there.
That's right.
No.
They got the U.S. government has to get on TikTok. They have to get on Twitter. They have to get on all these other platforms. So at
How
least
sad is that?
they could.
What a statement.
No, it's
yeah,
true.
at least so that they could at least see this stuff. I'm sure they have zero idea. So.
And finally, in Stories from the Sky comes something, we do the serious stories, the weird stories, or whatever. This is, I think, falls into both serious and weird. Increasingly, immigrants trying to get into America are flying to Canada and then trying to immigrate to the U.S. or pass into the U.S., cross the border into the U.S., might be a way to put it, from the north. As a result, U.S. officials who are charged with protecting the borders are transferring a bunch of Border Patrol agents who were at the southern border to the northern border to cover migrant crossings from Canada, since they are rising in such huge numbers. What happens is they fly legally from Mexico to Canada,
right,
and then cross south into New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire and make their way into this country that way. Yeah.
Those are the immigrants that have a lot of cash to throw around, because how many of the poor migrants waiting at the border with Mexico are going to be able to hop a flight to Canada?
Yeah, it's $350 one way, that ticket to Montreal or to Toronto from Mexico City. So Kim's right. I mean, you need a couple of dollars. Now you have to pay a couple of dollars to the coyotes and some of those people who say they'll get you to the U.S., right? So this is, the problem is now there's hypothermia. There are a lot of ways to freeze to death as you walk literally into the U.S., or you're secreted away in some van or other transport vehicle. It's a pretty scary way to try to get into this country in the cold weather, but that's what's happening. And so they make that flight, and then they try to make their way into the U.S. And with that, my friends, that is Stories from the Sky.
This has been Stories from the Sky. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to move about the cabin.
Now, Albert, I ask you as the producer of this fine show, and there's no off switch on Albert, which is what I like. I'm pinging him day and night, even though this is kind of a side hustle thing for him. I want to ask you, will we do the acknowledgments after Kim's news? We have had many people who have given generously to this show. We are crowdfunded. We need them. I like to acknowledge them when I can. And then will we, and this is a personal thing because I like this segment, will we do That's Rich today? Is it going to get done today, or when can I look forward to my little That's Rich segment?
So I'm Kim, I'd like to say I'm sorry, but we're gonna skip the bottom of the news. We just did news 10 minutes ago, so
I agree.
I'll hit a stinger. We'll get to this. We'll get to the shout outs. We had some big shout outs. Kevin Hobbs again, just a little teaser. Kevin Hobbs, thank you so much already. I wanted to hit the breaking news. I might just hit it regardless, even though I just spoiled it. And then we'll get to That's Rich to end the show.
All right. So give me a sweeper then, not a stinger.
All right, I'll hit Kim's favorite sweeper, and then we'll get back to
Kim's favorite sweeper, and then we'll do the shout outs, and That's Rich. Cool. All right, let's rock it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
I misspoke.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Why are you yelling?
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
There's never been anything like this.
We've never seen anything like it before.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
God bless America. The end.
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Sayonara, sucker!
You know what, pal? You created havoc and chaos.
I don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong? Huh?
Who is having that conversation?
Woo! Woohoo! Love it, Albert. Thank you very much. Welcome back.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Mark Thompson Show in our closing half hour. We have That's Rich coming up, and we have right now recognition. Let me just quickly say before I get into the recognition that I want to thank all of you who have essentially crowdfunded this show. You know, I'm always very honest with you about what's going on the show, and, you know, when we're having a tough time or when things are going well or whatever, you know, I'll always give you the specifics as best I can. And without your crowdfunding, the show goes away. It really is true. We are kind of living close to the edge. On the other hand, we're living there, and with your help, we're able to exist. And I'm very happy with the evolution of the show. We're going to evolve it in new, important ways, too, in the months to come. But again, most of all, just a moment to thank you for all the ways you support us. I will remind you that one of the great ways you support us, and probably the way to support us on an ongoing basis, is Patreon. And I want to recognize Jolene on Patreon. She's, I believe, the first Patreon subscriber. And she's also our, I believe, among our most generous subscribers. And you'll see her name.
Thank you.
You'll see her name, Jolene, at the end of the broadcast. We always post those Patreon subscribers. So if you want to join us on Patreon, please do. We'll put your name up there alongside everyone else's. And those who subscribe a little bit more and make a little more substantial donation, everybody to their ability and desire, of course. But I'm just saying, we'll give you an even bigger font size. That's why some font sizes are bigger than others, you know.
We could call Jolene our founding patron.
I think she's right up there. Andrea is also
so much.
Yeah, Dave again with us since the beginning, and back in October. It wasn't that long ago, but really
so much.
Yeah, Robin, thank you, Robin, Lynn, and Bill, and Catherine, and Kathy, and Dale, and Deidre, and
There's
Gail.
never been anything like this.
You guys are just the coolest on Patreon. Janet R., Jane M., Linda A., Lydia Lyons. Shout out to my women on International Women's Day. Thank you. Those are just a handful of people
Thank you.
who make such a difference on Patreon. So go to our website, The Mark Thompson Show, and .com, of course, themarkthompsonshow.com, and there'll be click-throughs to Patreon and PayPal, and you too can be part of the elite group of people that are patrons of the show on Patreon and PayPal. I'm going to get the PayPal names too. I'll have them for you either tomorrow or the day after. I just love that we have such a substantial and robust community building on this show. Now, the other way that people support us is super stickers and super chats here on YouTube. And we try to post them during the show and give them recognition as well at this time. Kevin Hobbs, Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
HOF, Kevin Hobbs, 7766. Shout out to Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, Hobbs.
I mean, Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
He will have a place on Thompson Terrace. Sharon Kidd, also a terrific supporter, and
so much.
Morning all. Kim did amazing, but Mark, you are the boss.
It's
like
true.
no other. We all love you. What?
Yeah.
I want more Sharon Kidd on this show. That's what I want.
It's true.
We love so-and-so, Rothman, whatever, but you, Mark. That's what.
Yeah.
Thank you
Sharon,
so much.
we love it. And there's a super sticker for $20. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. The Pride of Willits.
Yeah. The
Sharon
Pride of
Kidd.
Willits.
Mm-hmm. She took that Mark Thompson mug that you have and filled it with snow for us with a great picture. It's really cute.
Sharon Kidd for $19.99. Appreciate Mr. Rothman. Learn every week from you both, Mark. Isn't that nice?
Thank you so much.
Well, Sharon is also Hall of Fame. If you go back and actually look at her donations, she is also Hall of Fame. There are a bunch of Hall of Famers who are part of our community, and Sharon is certainly one of them, and will have a prominent spot on Thompson Terrace. Ann Herring.
Big shout out.
Ann Herring. Thanks for tossing us $10 today and a super sticker, Ann.
Thank you so much.
Spencer Jaffe, you chose Hillary Clinton in Pennsylvania in 2008.
Thank you.
Spencer Jaffe, thank you. Do you want to respond to that, Kim?
Happy International Women's Day. We should have all chosen her. Look what the country would have been like had we had a Clinton instead of a Trump.
Well, look what the country would have been like if Al Gore had been the president instead of Bush. You never would have had a war in Iraq. It's unbelievable. I mean, I get it. Everybody has issues. There's no one who can pass a purity test that we all have. But yeah, a totally different spot. S. Thompson, love your last name. Spells it slightly differently, and I have mad respect for that.
Missing the P.
Yeah. I think maybe that makes more sense.
Thank you,
$4.99.
thank you.
Thank you, super sticker. I told you about my dry cleaners, right? I have a real expensive dry cleaners. Courtney loves this guy, and we've got almost a personal relationship with him, and it's just because he is convenient to my house. So dry cleaning and other stuff we send out regularly. She has a lot of stuff that we send out, and it's expensive. I mentioned that because of the next thing. He wrote the first time I came in there. He wrote Thomas on the slip.
Hey,
and
which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
All of our stuff says Thomas on it, and I don't have the heart now because we've kind of grown close to him to correct him.
My bad.
So,
I'm sorry.
Doesn't he see your credit card when you hand it to him?
I don't think it's ever hit him. It's so funny. And he's such a nice guy, and he's got his sister passed away, and there's all this other stuff. And other I feel my heart breaks for the guy, but it's so funny when I see that Thompson, THOMSON. I think of the cleaners who take it. Yeah.
When you walk in now, do you just ask for Thomas?
He delivers. He delivers because
Okay.
I'm bougie like that.
Yeah.
All right. John Woodard for $1. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Awesome, John. Thank you. Thanks to everybody who throws in. Deborah Helms for $19.99. What up, Deborah?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Your contribution and continued support of the show is
nice.
Quite appreciated. Bob Amoroso.
I like his last name, Amoroso.
Amoroso.
Thank you so much.
$9.99.
He sounds like a lover.
Yes. Great show. Aloha, baby, from Walter, $9.99. What up in the islands, Walter? Watches
Thank you
us
so
from
much.
Hawaii.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Eric G.
Eric Chu.
$20 super sticker. Eric Chu. $20. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Give you the spell. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, Albert, there are a lot of it. And Sharon Kidd again. How much is Sharon Kidd given today?
She's up there at this point.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you on behalf of all of us here. I'm not going to cry, but I will say that Sharon has me in cry territory, cleanly in cry territory. If you want to support the show I mentioned, themarkthompsonshow.com. Hit the like button. Thank you for letting us spend a few moments on this. What we do is, I don't know that this is the best way to go. Can you still hear me? Can you still see me? We find our way through this stuff. I don't want the show to seem like it's a PBS telethon, like a pledge break every 2 minutes. So I try to crowd everything in one spot, or a couple of spots during the show. Sometimes it'll make that one spot longer, though, because of that. We're trying to find our way, the best way to do it. And if you have a thought on that, you can help us as well. But we really want to recognize everybody. And that's why I go back to Patreon and I go back to PayPal, because that's a great way to support us. And those people need a lot of recognition because they are monthly regular supporters of this show. So really do appreciate it. Yeah, right on, right on. What actual amount will make you cry?
The Mark Thompson Show.
I think I've seen some tears fly down. I think I have.
Early on, I was very moved by the kind of support we've seen.
Yeah.
So, now, Albert, are we going to do That's Rich, or what do we do now?
Yeah, let's get to That's Rich, and then we'll wrap up the show.
You don't sound really enthusiastic, Albert. Is there a problem of some kind? Oh, yeah. Let's get to That's Rich, and then let's wrap up. Okay, Mark.
Let's get out of here.
Who are they?
The top 1/10%.
What are they like?
These people are so posh and snobby, they're snotty.
That's Rich on the Mark Thompson Show.
Poor Albert has been up all night or something at his other gig. I don't know. I don't want to ask too many questions as to what his other gig is, but I mean,
Just
I
do
know
what
the
he
hours
says.
are funky.
I'm happy to be here,
I can't
Mark.
really dog
Just
him
happy
too
to
much
be
about
here.
attitude and attention because, you already heard, but I'll just review if you're just joining us. The winner of the $2 billion Powerball jackpot, or his first expenditure in the real estate area, he chose a big banging Hollywood Hills mansion, man, and he dropped $25.5 million on it. Again, he's got $2 billion to play with, although I think he took the payout, which is still about $1 billion. It's $997.6 million. So the likely cash purpose of a purchase, I should say, of a $25.5 million place is not even he's not gonna notice it. It's the most expensive sale in the Hollywood Hills this year, and among the neighborhood's priciest ever. He got a slight discount on the property, which listed for $29.95 million last summer. It's a gated home, Kim, above the Sunset Strip near Chateau Marmont. That's where I used to live.
Oh,
Yeah.
Chateau Marmont?
Yes, I used to live near Chateau Marmont. In fact, right across the way.
Hmm.
My neighbor, Kim, was Timothy Dalton. Do you know who that is?
I do, yes. The actor.
Yes. The actor in one James Bond or two, I think. How many I don't know how many James Bonds he did. But that's where this guy is purchased as well.
It looks like an unassuming entry there, doesn't it? I mean, if the picture on the screen, you don't know what's on the other side of it. It looks very, could be anything, but look
Plenty
at
of
that
space
view.
to stack up all that money.
Ooh, look at that.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, good for him. I hope he's happy.
I mean, that's a room worthy of a dance party. There's plenty of space to twirl.
Oh, that's just great. I hope he put a broken RV in the driveway, says Buck.
Nice theater. Look at the
Probably
garage.
just
Even
the
the
first
garage
house
has a
up
view.
front. Yeah, that's a nice garage. Wow. I could just buy the garage.
It reminds me of the garage in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where like it overlooked the trees.
Right.
Wow.
Not bad if you can afford it. Anyway, 25.5 million for him. Meantime, on the other side of town in Las Vegas,
Lost
the
wages.
Siegfried and Roy famous mansion where they raised and lived alongside their collection of exotic cats hits the market. I'm going to tell you about it and you're going to guess.
Okay.
It has 8,750 square feet of main house, almost 9,000 square feet. Also, 3 guest houses, 2 detached studios, 3 swimming pools.
That's a lot.
You buy the whole compound. It belonged to them for 40 years. And I will tell you that they bought it. Hang on a second. No, I'm going to leave that out. I don't want to give you too many clues. Okay.
How many acres? Do we know the acreage of the property?
Oh, let me look. That's a very good question. 42 acres of land.
Oh, okay.
You get 9,000 square foot home, 42 acres of land, number of animal enclosures as well, and a bird sanctuary if you want it.
That's
there
fancy.
are
Look at that.
no animals included in the sale. And the extravagant furnishings that fill the estate are not included either. So you'll have to furnish it yourself. There's a big, beautiful gate that says SR on it for Siegfried and Roy. And it's quite an extraordinary place. As you can see, we're showing you now on YouTube. If you're watching, you're kind of taking a 3D tour of the place. Now, I ask you in the chat, how much is it going for? And we have the guesses coming in.
It looks like a Mediterranean circus is what it looks like.
Kathleen says 48 million. Tess says 52 million. The bathroom count we already gave you, didn't we? 5 bedrooms and 6 baths. Ron says 16 million. It's it's a 9,000 square foot place in Las Vegas on 42 acres. Formerly Siegfried and Roy's place. 70 million, says John. 32, says Randy.
Yep.
Land is cheap in Vegas, says Gil. Does it have a golden toilet?
No, but it does have this really old school TV that looks like it's like 150 pounds.
Yeah, what is that, the old projection TV?
Yeah, that was like the TV when it first came out, and now it's the TV to get rid of.
Yeah, good luck to
In
your
Vegas,
fingers
Justin,
carrying
there's
the
just
TV out of the house.
200,000. What is that? 224 million.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the guess from Harry. Well, remember, it is Las Vegas, and it is true, as you have correctly pointed out in the chat, that real estate in Las Vegas is not what it would be in, let's say, the Bay Area.
But that's some Vegas history there, and that's a pretty big property. I don't know how many bathrooms did you say, but I'm going, can I guess?
Yes, please.
I'm going to say 26 million.
26 million, you say?
Yeah.
2 detached studios, 3 swimming pools. That certainly seems about right.
Yeah.
Belonged to them. They lived there happily for 40 years. I presume most of it was happy. One of the guest houses is 1,588 square feet with 2 bedrooms and 2 baths, and one of the 3 pools. That's in the guest house.
Yeah.
Second, which is the second largest, almost 2,000 square feet, has 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and one of those 3 pools is at the second guest house. The final guest house doesn't have a pool, but it is the largest at almost 2,000 square feet. There's a casita, there's a cabana. Wow. And yet, if you go to Las Vegas, that huge driveway, those big gates, you can have Siegfried and Roy's home for What? $3 million.
What?
Are
Three? Did you say
kidding me?
three?
I said three. Tres.
Wow.
That is astounding. That is one of the most astounding reveals in the history of That's Rich.
$3 million?
You can't for the price of a one bedroom in Pack Heights. With no view.
You couldn't even build it for that much. 48 acres of land too?
Yeah, it's
Maybe
unbelievable.
we can pull together, like Mark Thompson listeners and us, pull together 3 million, and this could be our extravagant new studio, and we could also live here.
It could be our new studio, and it could be like, you win a contest on the Mark Thompson show, you get a free week in the compound.
Yeah.
Wow. You get to produce the show, and I get some time off. That'll be great.
It's insanely affordable. It's insanely affordable. I mean, we say that again as Bay Area residents or
Did you not leave off a 3? Look at all those swimming pools.
No, it's for sure 3 million. I wanted to show these pictures. I did the 3D view, but also if you have a nice enough computer or a screen, you see on the bottom of this, me sharing the screen, it says for sale $3 million. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Fire sale.
I mean, it's a weird property. I mean, it's spectacular,
It is weird. I mean, it takes someone with a certain taste, right?
You'll have to replace all that sod with turf. There's some kind of AstroTurf type thing because you can't. The maintenance on it alone is going to be pretty substantial. It's got kind of a Moroccan feel in places.
Yeah.
If you look, I'm just kind of describing it to people who are just listening. There is the Vegas lavishness. It kind of looks like a couple of the passageways look like the entrance of the Bellagio Hotel.
Circus. It's Moroccan circus chic.
Yes, I think that's a fair description. Yeah. So, Siegfried and Roy's place.
3 million. Jump on it.
A little piece of Vegas history. And finally, let me leave you with this. Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck, you crazy kids. They are reportedly
Larry
in
King
escrow.
thing, right? They ran it back. They ran back the relationship.
Yes, Albert is right. They did the Larry King. I actually saw them their first go around. I saw them. She got out of a red Rolls Royce or Bentley convertible.
What?
It was in West Hollywood. And Ben was there and met her. It was wild to see. And she was wearing red pants, fire engine red. He was all red. Red rolls, red pants. Anyway, they broke up after that. And they now are back together, as Albert says. In fact, they're getting married, or are they married now? I don't know.
I think they're in the process. I think they will be getting married. I think
no. They're married. They're married.
Okay.
Oh, they're married. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, they've just settled on a spot in Los Angeles, and they are in escrow. 16,000 square feet of living space, 8 bedrooms for their family.
They have a lot of kids together.
It's on 1.13 acres of land. Yes. 8
like
bedrooms, 11 bathrooms, an 800 square foot gym, and a separate guest house.
Oh.
The outdoor area plays host to a pool, an outdoor spa, and a fire pit.
That's not
Indoor
fake.
amenities,
That's real.
a media room, and a game room. How much is this new spot that Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck are about to buy?
Where is it?
It's in the Pacific Palisades part of Los Angeles.
Okay.
Enough bedrooms for the couple and each of their 5 kids, and then some. And as I say, it's on 1.13 acres, 11 bathrooms, and 8 bedrooms. Albert, how much are they in escrow for on this?
Of course, I cheated, but I'm gonna just guess $18 billion, Mark. That's just my guess.
30 million says Rain. 45 says Calvin Wong, who is the shadow producer of this show. 16 million says
Randy.
Oh, Randy says 15 million. 30 million says Russ. Ocean Views, don't know. Don't know.
Probably, likely.
A lot of traffic views. for that.
60 million says Lan, who's a longtime supporter of the show. I also want to mention a longtime Patreon subscriber. Thank you, Lan. We love you. 60 million, she says. 25 million says Linda. And 40 million, finally, says Lauren. Well, it's interesting that Lan, who I was waxing on about, is such a supporter of the show, with her $60 million guess. The actual retail price is $64 million. Congratulations. That's pretty close. That's 60. Yeah. 16,000 square feet of living space and 8 bedrooms for the family. Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. Nice to see those crazy kids finally hitting stride. Yep.
$60 million. 60 how much? 66?
64 million. 64 million? Yeah.
I mean, at that point, who cares? Give or take a few mil, right? But wow.
That's rich for today.
Sorry, I'm looking for it.
That would be the time to put the post. See, I don't have any controller or anything.
I had it. I'm almost
right.
there.
More on how the other half lives.
These people aren't just rich, they're crazy rich.
Next time on the Mark Thompson Show.
Well, Albert, I think with that, we cut our let's go.
We got a lot of fun today.
We did the serious stuff. We did a lot of fun stuff. Thanks again to John Rothman who joined. Thanks to Mr. Christian who joined us.
Yeah.
Thanks to you who joined us. Thanks to everybody who's contributed. Hey, go check out our Patreon page. Go check out our PayPal page. That's the way we continue to crowdfund this show. You can do that at themarkthompsonshow.com. And if you want just fun stuff, go to the merch site, getmarkmerch.com. The mugs are available. Also, I might mention the Mark's Madness hats. We start Mark's Madness on the 14th. We will run through how it will work. We'll do that tomorrow. It will be a lot of fun. I promise you'll want to be part of it, and we'll take you through the process of how you get there. So all of that to come tomorrow. And
for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
I'll also mention that tomorrow we have Belinda, David Katz, and more. Nikki Show is next over on the Nikki Maduro channel. Till tomorrow. Bye-bye.